Well, yesterday was rather interesting, wasn't it? While waiting to go to work late yesterday, I was listening to the Tommy Robinson streams, and yes, while you may not like Tommy Robinson for a whole myriad of reasons, his coverage was on point. He had a team waiting outside while he himself went into the courtroom, along with people like Tailed Feature, who I believe was there as well. I know he was there the last time with Lawrence Southern, and after waiting quite a lot of time, we were given a verdict, and I'm going to play the clip that I used OBS to record of the verdict being given. The reason for this, by the way, is because I was slightly concerned that Tommy Robinson's stream would be, quotes, taken down again like his Speaker's Corner speech on Sunday. I am more inclined to believe that he deleted it because, while 23,000 people were watching live, myself included, his microphone was not connected to the phone used, so we couldn't hear anything he said. We got better audio from people holding their phones because some people were actually closer. They weren't stymied by the police officers after all. So I'm going to play the bits that I recorded through OBS because I want you to see the chat as well. And it is quite fascinating to see the reaction to this. And I apologise for Discord just then.
So we've got these guys coming out now. They're going to let us know what's happening.
Live?
Yep.
Count Dankula's just been convicted. He's been found guilty of causing, under the Communications Act, of being grossly offensive. That's right. It's a crime to be grossly offensive. It's been charged for anything. But what we found out under... He said, let me go back to what he said. He said that it was grossly offensive. He's been convicted of it being grossly offensive. 3 million people watched that video. Not one person made a complaint. 3 million people watched the video. Not one person made a complaint. It couldn't have been that grossly offensive. People couldn't have... And in context, it was a joke. But right now, he's facing prison.
Some of the leaders of the Jewish communities as well said that they were really upset about it, and they had a lot of...
Not one person made a complaint. Not one person made a complaint. He didn't make a complaint. The one person that they got a statement of is the Scottish Police hate crime representative. They went to him. Not one person made a complaint. Comedians joke every day. Comedians joke on TV shows. Comedians joke at theatres. It's a joke. It's a joke. It doesn't matter that it's a joke, no. It does not matter that it's a joke. I can't believe this is that judge. How anyone can't watch it and see that it's a joke. When you go through the man's history, you can see he's got no Nazi past. He's not a racist. He's a self-admitting communist. He's told you that himself.
Part of the reason it's really offensive was the fact that he uploaded the video and edited it, and it took him 3 days to put the video together. That's why it's offensive.
He said he should have taken the video down.
And he should have, yeah, once he realised the video was offensive, he should have taken it down. It's part of our right not to offend people.
So he said he didn't believe that it was...
Part of our right not to offend people.
The video was threatening.
Yeah, the video was threatening because apparently seeing a little dog lift its paw up under the command gas of Jews would scare people.
So once again, for people just joining, what's the verdict?
People just joining, the verdict is that Count Dankula has been convicted and found guilty under the Communications Act of being grossly offensive.
So throughout Tommy's little speech there are a couple of points I want to talk about. The first being the reference to the Communications Act of 2003, section 127, improper use of a public electronic communications network. What a fancy way of saying the internet. 1. A person is guilty of an offence if he, not she, sends by means of a public electronic communications network a message or other matter that is grossly offensive or of an indecent, obscene or menacing character, or causes any such message or matter to be so sent. I'm guessing they finally managed to find a way of proving that Dankula in fact uploaded the video that triggered no one in the process to YouTube. And I think it's a very interesting point. The whole point of that video was to piss his girlfriend off, and it worked. However, she, much like many people that commented below it, did not get offended. You're welcome to go to that video and check for yourselves if you need to. So somebody somewhere had to be thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm offended by this. Which basically leads me to a very crucial point about the police, and it is not as if I haven't covered enough of their nonsense over the last 2 weeks already. I have a strange feeling they're going to be my lolcow for the remainder of this year, and we are only in March of current year. The point anyway, is that they have taken it upon themselves to white knight for Dankula's girlfriend, to take offence when she hasn't taken offence. So much so that they could escalate it to a criminal charge of violating the Communications Act of 2003. I have a strange feeling Glasgow police should change their slogan to, "Don't worry about taking offence because we'll do it for you." You're welcome. We'll get rid of those pesky, pesky internet bullies that also happened to be your boyfriend, that I'm sure was in the doghouse for quite a while after you got the dog to salute when you said Sieg Heil. Your dog lifted up a hand. Hardly a criminal charge, really. Isn't it interesting that while you're trying to put Count Dankula in prison for a crime of offending no one, there are many other people in Scotland that have said very offensive things, the best example being Frankie Boyle when he offended Jordan.
I have a theory that Jordan married a cage fighter because she needed someone strong enough to stop Harvey from fucking her. It's my last tour and I don't give a fuck anymore.
I don't see him in handcuffs. Could it be that you possibly went after a much smaller comedian in a vain hope of setting some kind of example to silencing the bigger ones? Or is it more likely that you thought you'd get public support behind this one, whereas you wouldn't with the bigger names on the grounds that they have a far bigger fan base and the backlash would have been bigger? Then again, this backlash hasn't exactly made you look good, has it? And this, along with other cases, sets quite a dangerous precedent, because the hate crime unit really do need to rebrand to thought police crime. The precedent being that assumption is basically enough. You're assuming offence is being taken. I don't know how you've managed to prove that any offence was taken by anyone. I don't know how you've managed to prove he was in fact guilty or is in some way a Nazi or Nazi sympathiser. But you've managed to do it. So much so that the judge issued a guilty verdict. You also heard Tommy Robinson cover some of the points the judge made. I believe he's having a stream at some point, or has had a stream with Dankula. I will, if he did, link it below. Now I know other people like Sargon of Akkad have recommended or suggested a letter writing campaign. It's an idea and I'm actually all for it. This is absolute rubbish. The fact that so few people found this offensive shows just how petty you are. Then again, it's hardly a shock when you've got the same police that would charge a man for looking creepily through a window, which he's well entitled to do regardless of how his face may be. His face could be creepy for a whole host of reasons. It could just be a natural resting creepy face, or he could be gurning, or having an anxiety attack and it just happened to look like he was sneering. You never know. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I thought I'd include it. But you also have the fact that the police themselves aren't exactly the most up-and-up institute. They've been caught out and are repeatedly being caught out, either for turning the blind eye towards people committing crimes because of race, or whether it be not presenting all the evidence that they have collected on the grounds of some of it being considered too personal in a case of rape. In a stream with Ben A, Cognitive Thought and Real Raven, I referenced an old joke that I think the pet project of Scotland having a devolved administration is cute and is over. Cog was right to correct and point out that it's a rubbish joke and they should just keep the powers because we couldn't take it away from them. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with me saying, Scotland, you are an absolute joke. Not just with your constabulary and how you charge your citizens, but also how you tax them. Two people could be working for the same company, but one in England and one in Scotland. The person in England would pay less tax because of Scotland's tax system. That's nice and fair, isn't it? Raise extra funds for pet projects by completely conning your people out of any kind of initiative to want to make more money to live a better life, which they can't because you're taking it away from them. I assume this will also go towards the Supermax prison you'll inevitably put people in for thinking the word nigger. A stretch, I know, and tinfoil hat should surely be on my head for it. But can you blame me for thinking one day the Scottish police will have their own Supermax prison? As a recommendation for someone like Danky, who I think is incredibly funny, and no, I'm not sucking his dick right now, maybe later, I think we should crowdfund something, just in case he has to go to prison. I think we should crowdfund to send him as many soap on a ropes as possible, so there's less chance he'll get absolutely butt-fucked into oblivion, so his bottom is stretched as far as one of those earrings he has. Just saying. Now to conclude with this little thing about the Communications Act, because I think it's quite important to address it. I do not agree with this section of it. I have not read all of it. Obviously, I haven't. My view on this is quite simple. You cannot prosecute people for things like this. You have comedians and celebrities actually calling you out because they also think this is nonsense. Dave Baddiel, a Jewish comedian, thinks this is absolute bollocks. I'm starting to use that word a lot. I might have to consider adding it to a list of things I shouldn't say too often. Oh wait, maybe one day that word will also be added to the Thought Police list of things people shouldn't say. I do not believe you should have the powers to police what people say, what people do, what people upload to YouTube, and how people choose to behave. It's only when they start to themselves enforce it on other people, like enforce the idea of wanting to gas the Jews on people. Enforce that. If they try that, then yeah, you should stop them. But when they're saying Sieg Heil to a dog to get it to salute, it's ridiculous. Oh, and there is actually one more thing I forgot. While watching the Kumite, I noticed Tailed Feature mention this. He was talking about the case and the previous instance when the prosecution filibustered, which prolonged this case, which is another damning statement about the justice system in Scotland. It says to me that you were desperate to make an example out of him. He's been joking for a year and a half that he was going to prison anyway. He might yet still, for the maximum of 6 months, of course. Unless you're going to find another way to spin this into a different charge entirely, but I'm unable to think of one or find one that would match. During that Kumite, there was also reference to Gregory Allen Elliot, and I want to make one little correction to those on the Kumite who mentioned it. While Canada, yes, I say Canada, is a part of the Commonwealth, their laws are not the same as ours, although their Prime Minister is just as embarrassing as ours. And, of course, by extension, Scotland's First Minister. Anyway, hashtag I stand with Dank, hashtag free Dankula, all that. I fully support you regardless of whether that video is funny or not. That is entirely, like all comedy, subjective, and you didn't expect that video to go viral, I know this. Oh, and one final thing. How did the journalists know you were going to arrest someone for a hate crime before he was even charged with it? I forget.